Hey y'all, and welcome to another episode of Flick Connection. And in less time than you normally spend scrolling for something to watch every night, I'm going to tell you about all the best stuff Prime Video is adding in March 2024. And it looks like an action-packed March, including a fistful of action movies, a brand new one with Zac Efron and John Cena, and another new one with Jake Gyllenhaal and Conor McGregor.
That's awesome. You just said, what did you say? Just say it one more time.
First, I want to tell you about my top 10 picks out of everything they've already added on March 1st. Where they added a long list of movies, much more than they normally do. But some of the underrated ones I want to highlight include Safe House, starring Denzel Washington and Ryan Reynolds. This is a really slick espionage flick that is packed with some hard-hitting action. I mean, the movie feels very brutal at times, but it also feels like real espionage. It doesn't feel like slick, sexy spy stuff. No, this is down and dirty, and it feels pretty raw and real as a result. For a throwback, they're adding A Fistful of Dynamite. This is one of Sergio Leone's most underrated movies. I would say big fans of Quentin Tarantino will find a lot to love with Fistful of Dynamite, but it's kind of strange and has a different tone than a lot of other westerns from this era, which really made it stand out for me. Cadillac Man is a great Robin Williams flick. It's high drama stuff, but it is really funny at the same time. He plays a Cadillac dealer who's a hell of a stick man. He's got relations going with several different women, and when one of their husbands, played by Tim Robbins, shows up at the dealership one day and holds everyone hostage, the shit really does hit the fan in this movie. Robin Williams is amazing in this movie, like he always is, but you get a really cool supporting cast, including people like Fran Drescher. She is amazing in this movie. If you like anything I've said about it, it's a real gem from the 80s that just never gets enough love. Another couple of movies about some guys who like sleeping around include What Lies Beneath, starring Harrison Ford and Michelle Pfeiffer, a real underrated gem of a PG-13 horror movie. This came out at a time where most horror movies were just loaded with jump scares and all kind of had the same beat about them. What Lies Beneath has that, but this was also directed by Robert Zemeckis, so it also has a lot of cutting-edge techniques in it for the time, and it turns out it holds up as a really fantastic horror flick from that era. And then Vanilla Sky is an incredibly rewatchable Tom Cruise flick. Now that he seems to be wrapping things up with Mission Impossible, it looks like he's getting back into more interesting projects like this. Don't get me wrong, I love Mission Impossible, but I'm interested in the fact that Tom Cruise is likely going to appear in Quentin Tarantino's last movie. He's also rumored to be in Alejandro Iñárritu's next film. They also added a couple of my favorite movies to take place in the 1920s, Road to Perdition and The Untouchables. The Road to Perdition just being an amazing Tom Hanks movie. This is one of his grittier performances. He doesn't do that a whole lot, and he did a hell of a job in this movie. It's also one of Paul Newman's last roles, if not his last great role. Daniel Craig, Jude Law, everyone's fantastic in this movie. It's got a beautiful look to it, and it's got some really tense scenes that build up towards a fair amount of action for a drama like this. And then The Untouchables is really kind of unparalleled in its category, not just with the pedigree of actors it has, with Sean Connery, Robert De Niro doing Al Capone, and it was so well crafted by Brian De Palma. There's so many great scenes in The Untouchables, including the opening scene. I mean, if you're not into this movie within the first 5-10 minutes, then maybe it's not for you. And then easily one of the greatest movies of all time, The Great Escape. Not only is it one of the greatest movies of all time, but it's also one of the most watchable. You can watch this with the family, even though it's a World War II movie. And it's thoroughly engaging to watch by yourself as an adult, especially as a middle-aged man like myself. Movies don't get a whole lot better than The Great Escape. But my top 2 picks out of all the familiar favorites they've already added are some bangers, including Gone Baby Gone. The first movie directed by Ben Affleck, not quite his best, but still an excellent crime thriller. His brother is amazing in this movie. In fact, this is one of the first roles where he really took off as an actor, in my opinion. And then I Saw the Devil, easily one of my favorite movies from South Korea. It's such an incredible murder mystery. Really sort of a serial killer hunting type of a movie, very much like Silence of the Lambs, but with a twist, with a twisted twist that works really well, is incredibly engaging, and makes this one highly rewatchable, even though it is quite disturbing at times. Some other familiar favorites include movies like Roadhouse, a movie I almost included in my top 10, but I like those other movies a bit better. And yes, the Jake Gyllenhaal remake is coming to Prime this month. I'm gonna talk about it at length later in the video because I do suspect that this movie is actually gonna be a lot better than most of us would have expected. I also fairly recently rewatched the original Roadhouse, and it does hold up. It's badass, it's funny at times, and at other times it's incredibly cheesy, just the way you want an 80s movie to be. I mean, Patrick Swayze rips a guy's throat out unironically in the movie. It's pretty fantastic stuff, and I do strongly recommend checking it out before watching the new remake coming to Prime later this month.
Now you are gonna hold down that football until Charlie Brown kicks it. You got that? Roadhouse.
But they've also added Back to School. If it's been a while since you've seen Rodney Dangerfield do the Triple Lindy, it's one of the funniest movies of the 80s. Some other 80s gems include The Warriors.
Warriors, come out to play.
Pet Sematary. Field of Dreams. And By a Dome, which I know is 90s, but I can tell you Pauly Shore, he actually holds up better than you would expect. Stephen Baldwin, not quite so much. But if that's not enough for you, here's a quick look at some other gems, again, that they've already added on March 1st. On the 5th, they're adding Five Nights at Freddy's, the recently released horror movie based on the popular video game. I can say that this is for a younger audience. While it is kind of funny at times, this definitely does appeal to the YouTube generation. And I know what you're thinking, hey, I'm watching YouTube. You and I, most of you watching, we're not really, the movie's not for us. I don't know. It kind of missed the mark for me, but if you enjoyed the game at all, it's still kind of a fun horror flick. Strong sell, I know.
You know, all we did was tell one lie.
Hundreds and hundreds of times over many, many years.
And then they add Ricky Stenicki, the new comedy starring John Cena, Zac Efron, and Cheeto Santino. I have no doubt these guys will be absolutely hilarious together. I also have no doubt if the movie were truly hilarious, they would have put some more marketing dollars behind it and released it in theaters. I say that though to then later in the video talk up the new Roadhouse movie. We'll get to that in a minute. But first, if you noticed this St. Nicholas shirt, you can actually grab one. They're available at darrenvandam.com/shop, along with a bunch of other designs. If you were eyeing one before and you didn't want the logo on the sleeve, we've actually moved them to inside the back collar. If you're new to the channel though, these shirts are super soft. They are 100% cotton, so they'll shrink up a little bit. Get a size up if you don't want a snug fit. But this design in particular and a couple of others are available for a limited time. There'll be some new ones on the way soon. So go check that out. It's a great way to support the channel, but there's a lot more coming to Prime this month, including My Big Fat Greek Wedding 3, which is a new release movie. I actually didn't realize one of these came out in 2023. Either that or I completely forgot. And then on the 14th, they bring Invincible back. This is a hit series for season 2, part 2. Now, even though it's animated, this is adult animation. It's a very graphic, violent superhero series, but if you're a fan of The Boys, one of the more popular Prime Video shows, then Invincible kind of fits right along with it. On the 15th, they're adding the National Women's Soccer League. Just more live sports available on Prime Video. I know it won't be the most popular one, but it's a sign that there's a slow trickle of live sports working their way into these streaming services, which is clearly like the death rattle of cable TV.
You heard me, Slenderman. Buy some beer. We'll beat your ass.
Oh, all right, bro.
You asked for it.
On the 17th, they're adding a funny flick, Please Don't Destroy the Treasure of Foggy Mountain. This is actually from the guys who do the Please Don't Destroy SNL skits, something I wasn't really that aware of until this movie came out, but I've seen this movie more than once. I thought it was that funny, and it's just classic silliness. You do have to have the right sense of humor for this, but Conan O'Brien is in it. He's hilarious. And this is another one where if you're not into the opening bit, the first 5 to 10 minutes, then the movie's not going to be for you.
The police are here, and they're saying that you bought alcohol for minors.
Oh, in Europe, the drinking age is like 10.
They could have been European.
What made you think they were European?
They had a certain je ne sais quoi.
I think one of them was eating pain au chocolat.
And then on the 21st, they're releasing Roadhouse.
I just slapped you. Are you all right?
What?
Roadhouse.
I'll say I've been excited about this movie for a while for several reasons, and then when I realized it was going to be a Prime Video original going direct to Prime Video, I gotta be honest, I was sorely disappointed. It makes me think that this movie might not be as good as I was anticipating. However, you've got Jake Gyllenhaal. Not only do I expect him to be good in the movie, he looks absolutely jacked for this movie. And not just huge, he looks like he's in incredible shape. Like, way better than Patrick Swayze in the original. That's not a knock against Swayze, the man's a legend, but we've got very different standards for what a male body should look like in 2024 than we did in the 80s. But that's a whole nother ball of wax. I mean, yeah, not every Jake Gyllenhaal movie is a banger, but the guy rarely picks a dud. This remake was also directed by Doug Liman, if that name doesn't sound familiar. Yes, admittedly, his last movie was Chaos Walking, not a very good one, but this is the guy who also did Edge of Tomorrow with Tom Cruise, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the original Bourne Identity, Go, and Swingers. So the guy has directed some really killer flicks that have just kind of like perfect tones to them that are funny and fun at the same time. And I'm just hoping that's what we get with this Roadhouse remake. The trailer looks absolutely sick. It looks over the top. I hope they have as much fun with it as they had with the original. Conor McGregor seems to have a pretty meaty role in this. I don't care if he can act. I just hope they gave him some really fun lines and had some fun with it. They even brought in one of the co-writers of The Nice Guys to work on the script. Hopefully we get a similar level of levity and comedy out of this as well. I'm kind of pumped for it, but also have my expectations tampered down because it's a Prime Video original. If this was coming out in theaters, I'd be going to see it as soon as it released. Now, if that's not badass enough for you, they're also adding Wrath of Man, one of Guy Ritchie's most masculine, sort of badass movies he's ever done. A movie that was totally mismarketed, in my opinion. And yeah, you get Jason Statham robbing armored cars in a movie, sort of. Like, it looks like his typical type thing, but this is actually a pretty hard-hitting Guy Ritchie gangster flick, and Jason Statham is playing one of the most badass characters he's ever played, which is really saying something. It's a really cool flick with sort of a throwback vibe that I think just too many people passed on. On the 26th, they're adding another somewhat new release, Minions: The Rise of Gru. The movie's only a couple of years old, so there's a good chance your kids are not bored with it yet. Tig Notaro has a new comedy special coming to Prime. Whereas Netflix has one almost every single weekend, Prime tends to do about one a month, but they do tend to be pretty good in their selections. March 30th adds more live sports with Premier Boxing Championships, another thing that's not gonna get people to leave cable, but the live sport availability is mounting on streaming services. And on the 31st, another just badass movie with lots of action and fighting, Battle Royale. The movie that no doubt inspired The Hunger Games, and honestly, the movie that is way better than The Hunger Games. It's bloodier, it's more vicious, and feels much more like kids trying to kill each other. It's a really great cult flick if you've never seen it, but instead of showing you everything leaving Prime Video this month, because it's not a whole lot, I'm going to show you everything they just added to Freevee. This is stuff that is completely free, also available alongside everything in Prime Video, but you'll have to sit through some ads to watch these. However, you can watch these with or without a Prime Video membership. A lot of these titles will leave by March or April, so be sure to click that subscribe button if you're not already subscribed. Maybe even click the bell or the like button. It's a great way to tell the algorithm you'd like to see content like this again in the future. And don't forget to go check out my t-shirt shop. There's cool stuff like this over there. But I will keep making these videos as long as y'all keep watching them. Thanks for checking out this episode, and you will see me on the next one.